All right, folks, buckle up for this deep dive. We're heading straight into the world of Sunny Jetsun's poetry.
It's going to be a wild ride, I'll tell you that.
For those of you who might not know, Sunny Jetsun's he's this world-traveling poet who seems to have, absorbed all that 60s counterculture energy.
Landed himself right in Goa, India. Been there for what, 2 decades now?
Yeah, something like that. And let me warn you, his poetry is just as colorful and untamed as his whole life story. We're talking R-rated, no-holds-barred stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Jetson, he doesn't shy away from anything. Tackles some seriously controversial themes.
And he does it all with this incredibly surreal, sometimes even shocking imagery. So to navigate this crazy poetic landscape.
Yeah, we got to break it down a bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to break our deep dive into 3 parts. First, we're going to try to unpack the surrealism that just kind of permeates all of Jetson's work.
Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, those controversial themes he's known for.
And finally, we'll each share a poem that really stood out to us, for better or worse.
Sounds like a plan. Let's jump in.
Okay, so when I first encountered Jetson's poetry, I was immediately struck by how audacious his language is. It's like he's trying to paint these vivid, almost like hallucinatory images with his words.
Right.
Like, for example, in the one poem he writes, meteorites, cloisonné plasma projectors, comet spectrum, lemon topaz sunbeams bursting through the Amazon canopy.
It's like a fever dream. It's wild, and it's a perfect example of what Dr. Oliver Tyrrell, this literary scholar, calls Jetson's unique ability to, and I'm quoting here, often give concrete form to abstract ideas through unusual images and comparisons.
Yeah, and then he'll just throw these neologisms at you.
Oh, yeah.
Like cosmogenic, narcissistic, toxic, karmic, synchronistic, dharma. It's like he's creating his own language, you know, like a lexicon for this strange, otherworldly reality.
Absolutely. And these made-up words, they add to the feeling that you're entering a completely different realm when you're reading his poetry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's disorienting and exhilarating all at the same time.
Totally. But beneath that surreal surface, Jetson's tackling some seriously heavy, often controversial topics.
Oh, for sure. I mean, a recurring theme in his work is this deep distrust of authority. Governments, institutions, anyone in a position of power. He's skeptical of them all.
Yeah, and that skepticism seems to fuel his pretty intense anti-establishment views. He's a fierce critic of war, economic inequality, social injustice, environmental destruction, basically all the major problems we're facing today.
You got it. It's like he's holding up this mirror to society and screaming, look at this mess we've created.
And he's not afraid to name names, point fingers.
No, not at all.
And sometimes it feels like he's venturing into full-blown conspiracy theory territory.
Right.
Talking about deep state activities and hidden agendas and manipulation of the masses.
That's where things get really interesting. And for some people, I'm sure, quite unsettling. It's not just pointing out the problems. It's like he's suggesting that there are these powerful forces actively working to make things worse.
So how do we even begin to make sense of all of this? Especially the more out there stuff. I mean, is it just Jetson ranting or is there something deeper going on?
Well, I think to understand Jetson, you got to understand his personal history. He's someone who's seen a lot. The dark underbelly of power and control.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, he came of age during the Vietnam War, huge social and political upheaval, and his travels, I mean, they exposed him to all sorts of cultures and perspectives that really challenged the dominant Western narrative.
So his poetry is it's a reflection of all that, right? A way of processing the world through this very unique and let's face it, pretty intense lens.
Exactly. He's not just pulling these ideas out of thin air. He's grappling with real events, real anxieties, and filtering them through his own artistic sensibility.
And we see this reflected in the specific historical events and figures that pop up in his work. Julian Assange, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Paris Commune. These aren't just random references. They're carefully chosen touchstones that connect to his concerns about power and freedom and the human cost of injustice.
And it's interesting how he uses quotes from other thinkers to kind of bolster his arguments. He often weaves in lines from George Orwell, especially the one about history being manipulated to control people.
Oh, yeah.
This highlights his distrust of established narratives and his belief that we're constantly being fed information that only serves the interests of the powerful.
It's like he's telling us, don't believe everything you hear. Think for yourselves. Question everything.
Absolutely. Jetson's poetry it's a call to critical thinking, to challenge the status quo, to fight for a more just and equitable world. But it's also a descent into some some pretty dark and disturbing territory. He's not afraid to explore the shadows, to confront the ugliness that often lies hidden beneath the surface of things.
Yeah, which brings us to those eyebrow-raising themes you mentioned earlier. I mean, where do we even begin? He's got poems about everything from government conspiracies and corporate greed to, sexual deviance and the occult.
It's a lot,
There's
right?
a lot to unpack.
It is. But I think one of the keys to understanding Jetsun's work is recognizing that he's not afraid to be provocative. He wants to shock us, to make us uncomfortable, to force us to confront things that we might rather ignore. And he does that by pushing boundaries, both in terms of language and subject matter.
So we should probably brace ourselves for some potentially offensive or disturbing content as we delve deeper into his work.
Fair warning given. Jetsun's poetry isn't for the faint of heart, but for those willing to take the plunge, it can be a truly mind-bending and thought-provoking experience.
All right. Well, I'm feeling brave, or maybe a little masochistic. So let's dive into some of those controversial themes.
Okay, let's start with his critique of power structures, which seems to be at the core of a lot of his work. Jetsun is deeply suspicious of anyone in a position of authority, whether it's politicians, religious leaders, even celebrities. He sees them all as potentially corrupt and self-serving, more interested in maintaining their own power than in serving the people they're supposed to represent.
Yeah, and he doesn't hold back in expressing his anger and frustration with these systems of power. There's a real raw, visceral quality to his writing when he's railing against injustice or hypocrisy. It's almost like he's spitting fire.
Exactly. And that rage is often directed at very specific individuals and institutions. He names names, calls out hypocrisy, and uses satire and dark humor to expose what he sees as the absurdity and cruelty of the world.
And then there's his fascination with the darker side of human nature. He explores themes of violence, greed, lust, and betrayal with this brutal honesty that can be quite unsettling.
Right. He's not interested in romanticizing human behavior. He wants to show us the ugliness, the rawness, the potential for darkness that exists within us all. And he does it in a way that can be both repulsive and strangely compelling.
Yeah, and let's not forget his exploration of conspiracy theories, which can sometimes veer into, pretty out there territory. He talks about secret societies, government cover-ups, even alien encounters.
Right. And while some might just dismiss these ideas as paranoid ramblings, I think it's important to recognize that Jetsun is tapping into a very real anxiety that a lot of people feel about the world today.
Yeah.
There's this sense that things are spinning out of control, that we're being lied to, and that powerful forces are working behind the scenes to shape our lives in ways we don't fully understand.
So his poetry becomes this way of giving voice to those anxieties, even if those voices are sometimes screaming from the fringes of society.
Exactly. He's giving a platform to the voiceless, the marginalized, the people who feel like they're being ignored or silenced by the mainstream.
And he's not afraid to use strong language or shocking imagery to get his point across. In fact, it's like he revels in it.
It's definitely part of his appeal.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to push boundaries, to break taboos, to make us confront things we'd rather not think about.
So before we get too deep into the dark side, let's lighten things up a bit. I know you wanted to talk about Jetsun's use of humor, which can be pretty twisted at times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, despite all the darkness and anger in his work, there's also this wicked sense of humor that runs through it. He's able to find the absurdity in even the most serious situations.
Got it.
And he uses satire and wordplay to poke fun at those in power, to expose hypocrisy and generally just make us question everything we thought we knew.
And his humor can be pretty dark, bordering on offensive at times.
Yeah.
But even when he's pushing the limits of good taste, there's a sense that he's doing it with a wink and a nod, like inviting us to laugh at the absurdity of it all.
He's definitely not afraid to be politically incorrect.
Right
But
on.
I think his humor, however dark it may be, is ultimately rooted in this deep-seated sense of compassion. He's laughing at the world's absurdities, but he's also laughing at himself and at our shared human folly.
So while we may not always agree with his views or appreciate his methods, I think we can all appreciate his willingness to to challenge conventions and make us think differently about the world.
Absolutely. He's a provocateur, an iconoclast, a poet who refuses to be pigeonholed or silenced, and that's what makes his work so damn interesting.
Okay, well, I think we've laid a pretty solid foundation for understanding the complex and often contradictory world of Sunny Jetsun's poetry.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the heart of the matter and delve into some of his most controversial themes. Buckle up, folks. It's about to get bumpy.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get down to brass tacks here.
Yeah.
Which one of Jetsun's controversial hot takes are we tackling first?
Well, his views on sex and relationships are certainly provocative, to say the least. I mean, he's not exactly advocating for, monogamy and picket fences.
Yeah, from what I've read, he seems to embrace a pretty free-spirited, even hedonistic approach to sexuality.
A lot of talk about tantric practices and polyamory, pushing boundaries, sort of thing.
Exactly. He seems to view sexual energy as this powerful force, something to be explored and celebrated, not repressed or confined by societal norms.
And he's not afraid to get pretty graphic in his descriptions either.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Some of his poems are definitely NSFW. But it's not just about the physical act itself. There's a spiritual dimension to it as well. He talks a lot about connecting with the divine feminine, about transcendence through sexual experience.
It's this complex mix of eroticism and mysticism.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but it's certainly a core theme in his work.
Right.
And one that he keeps coming back to again and again.
And it ties into his broader critique of societal norms and institutions. He sees traditional marriage and monogamy as oppressive structures, designed to control and limit human potential.
Yeah.
He's advocating for this more liberated, more authentic way of relating to each other, sexually and emotionally.
And of course, this challenges a lot of deeply held beliefs and values.
Right.
For some, it's liberating. For others, it's downright scandalous. But love him or hate him, you can't deny that Jetsun is not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Okay. So let's move on to another one of Jetsun's favorite targets. Organized religion. He's not exactly shy about expressing his disdain, shall we say.
Disdain is putting it mildly. He seems to view organized religion as a tool of oppression, something that's been used throughout history to control people and stifle their individuality.
Yeah. Yeah, he really goes after the hypocrisy and corruption that he sees within religious institutions. He calls out religious leaders for their abuse of power, their greed, their willingness to exploit people's faith for their own gain.
And he's not afraid to use some pretty strong language, even blasphemy, to make his point.
Right. It's pretty inflammatory stuff, especially for anyone who holds, strong religious beliefs. But again, that's Jetsun's style, right? He's a provocateur. He wants to shake things up, to challenge our beliefs, to make us uncomfortable.
And he's particularly critical of religions that promote a hierarchical structure.
Yeah.
Where men are in positions of power and women are relegated to subservient roles.
Right. That ties into his broader theme of challenging traditional power dynamics.
Yeah.
Not just in religion, but in all aspects of society.
Exactly. He sees patriarchy as a toxic force that's responsible for a lot of the world's problems, and he's not afraid to call it out.
Okay. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about one of Jetsun's more esoteric obsessions, conspiracy theories.
Ah, yes. The rabbit hole goes deep with this one.
Yeah.
Jetsun seems to have this particular fascination with theories about secret societies and hidden agendas and the manipulation of the masses by powerful forces working behind the scenes.
Yeah, he's got poems about everything from the Illuminati and the Bilderberg Group to government cover-ups of UFO sightings and alien encounters.
It can get pretty wild, and I think it's important to acknowledge that not everyone's going to take these ideas seriously. Some might dismiss them as, paranoid ramblings.
Right. But even if you don't buy into the specifics of his theories, I think there's something interesting about the underlying anxieties that they reflect.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they feel like they're being lied to, that the world is being controlled by forces beyond their understanding or control.
Exactly. And Jetsun's poetry, it gives voice to those anxieties,
Yeah.
even if those voices are sometimes coming from the fringes of society.
Okay. I think we've covered some of the major themes that make Sunny Jetsun's work so controversial.
Yeah.
But now I'm really curious to hear about the poems that resonated with each of us.
Me too. You wanna go first?
Sure, sure. The poem that really stuck with me, for better or worse, is called Carnival of the Damned.
Oh, okay.
It's this incredibly visceral and disturbing depiction of this decadent, surreal world where everything is upside down and inside out.
Okay, that sounds intense. What is it about that poem that grabbed you?
Well, first of all, the imagery is just, it's insane. He describes these grotesque figures, masked revelers, and these bizarre rituals that are both alluring and terrifying. It's like a Hieronymus Bosch painting come to life.
I can see why that would appeal to you.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
always had a taste for the macabre.
Don't judge my artistic preferences, but it's not just the shock value. I think the poem's really about the dark underbelly of human nature, the way we can get caught up in these cycles of self-destruction and lose sight of what's truly important.
That's a pretty deep reading. I'm impressed.
I have my moments, but seriously, there's this line in the poem that really gets to me. We dance on the edge of the abyss, laughing as we fall. I think it just captures this sense of recklessness, this willingness to embrace chaos and destruction that's both thrilling and terrifying.
It's a reminder that we all have a dark side. Yeah.
And that sometimes it's hard to resist the pull of the abyss.
Exactly. And I think Jetson is forcing us to confront that darkness, to acknowledge that it's a part of us, whether we like it or not.
Okay. Well, you've certainly piqued my curiosity. I might have to check that one out myself.
Yeah, you should.
Now, what about you? Which poem resonated with you?
Well, the one that really stayed with me is called Whispers from the Void.
Yeah.
It's a much quieter, more contemplative piece than Carnival of the Damned,
Oh.
but it's no less unsettling.
Intriguing. Tell me more.
It's basically a meditation on the nature of reality.
Okay.
The idea that what we perceive as the world around us is just this thin veil covering a vast unknowable void.
That's getting into some pretty heady philosophical territory.
Yeah, it is. But Jetson manages to explore these complex ideas in a way that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally resonant.
He talks about feeling lost and alone in this vast universe, about questioning the meaning of existence, about yearning for connection and purpose.
It sounds like he's tapping into some pretty universal anxieties.
He is, and I think that's what makes the poem so powerful. It speaks to this sense of existential dread that I think a lot of us feel, this feeling that we're just tiny specks of consciousness adrift in this vast and indifferent universe.
It's a reminder of our own insignificance in the grand scheme of things.
Right, but it's also a reminder of the beauty and fragility of life, and the importance of cherishing the connections we have with each other.
It sounds like a poem that invites multiple interpretations.
It definitely does, and I think that's one of the things I appreciate most about Jetson's work. He doesn't offer easy answers or spoon feed us his interpretations. He challenges us to think for ourselves, to engage with his ideas on our own terms, and to come to our own conclusions.
It's a testament to the power of poetry to provoke thought and spark conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect segue into our final thoughts on Sunny Jetsun and his work.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? Why should anyone care about this often obscene, sometimes insightful, always challenging poet?
Well, I think Jetson's poetry, however controversial it may be, is a reminder that we shouldn't be afraid to ask difficult questions, to challenge authority, and to think for ourselves. He encourages us to question the narratives we're given, to dig deeper, and to seek our own truths, even if those truths are uncomfortable or unsettling.
He's a voice of dissent, a provocateur, a poet who refuses to be silenced or pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And in a world that often tries to shut down dissenting voices, I think that's a pretty valuable thing.
Absolutely. He's a reminder that art can be a powerful force for change, even when it's pushing boundaries and making people uncomfortable.
So what's the takeaway for you, the listener? What should you do with all this information about Sunny Jetsun and his wild world of poetry.
Well, I think the best thing you can do is to explore his work for yourself. Don't take our word for it.
Right.
Dive into his poetry, grapple with his ideas, and see what resonates with you. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And remember, as with any deep dive, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
And be willing to challenge your own assumptions.
Absolutely.
You might not agree with everything Jetson says.
Right.
And that's okay.
It's fine.
But I guarantee you'll come away from the experience with a fresh perspective on the world and a renewed appreciation for the power of language to provoke, to challenge, and to inspire.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap things up. This has been a wild ride.
It has.
And I'm sure we've all learned a lot.
We sure have. But before we go, I want to leave you with a quote from Sunny Jetsun himself. The truth is out there, but it's rarely found on the surface.
That's a good one to ponder. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
So we've explored the surreal landscapes of Jetsun's poetry, and we've dug into all that controversial stuff. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the big question is, what does this all mean for you, the listener? How does Sunny Jetsun's work, all its, strangeness and boldness, how's it hit you?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, right? We've thrown a lot at you in this deep dive. Surreal imagery, those blasphemous rants, conspiracy theories, graphic sex. It's a lot.
It is. But I think, however challenging his poetry is, it's ultimately an invitation to wake up, question everything, break free from how we're supposed to think, embrace a more authentic way of being in the world.
Like he's saying, don't be a sheep. Think for yourself. Challenge the status quo. And hey, don't be afraid to get a little weird along the way.
Exactly. He's all about individuality, free expression, pushing boundaries. And whether or not you agree with everything he says, there's something inspiring about his commitment to being genuine, to speaking his truth, no matter how uncomfortable or controversial it gets.
So, as we wrap up this wild ride through Sunny Jetsun's poetry, the question is, are you ready to take the red pill? Step outside that matrix of conventional thought and embrace, well, the chaos and the beauty of Jetsun's unfiltered vision.
The choice is yours, listener, but I really encourage you to check out his work. Open mind, and be willing to challenge what you think you know. You might be surprised.
And on that note, we'll leave you with one last thought from Sunny Jetsun himself. The truth is a wild beast lurking in the shadows. Don't be afraid to hunt it down.
That's one to think about. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.